I'm Lucia Oberste. I'm a professional dog trainer, and I'm currently in Portland, Oregon.
Cool. So short.
What should I say
Concise.
more?
No, I don't know. You've been the most concise out of everybody so far.
I'm an
No, it's
Aquarius.
good. Yeah. Welcome to the Beasts Who Made Us podcast. I'm Cori, a dog trainer from Chicago. You may also know me as Venus and Mars Canine, and today I talked to my friend Lucia of Frolic Dog Training. We discuss her journey into the world of dog training, which started at a very young age in dog rescue. We do talk about some animal welfare issues, so there's a content warning for that, as well as mention of death, both of dogs and humans. So if you don't want to hear anything about that right now, don't listen to this episode. However, we do round it out with discussing her time in dog training school, where she's at in her career today, and we end the episode with some talk about self-care. I hope you enjoy it.
I feel like I have always been an animal person. I think dogs developed when I was like a little bit of an older kid. But there was always dogs around. So yeah, I don't really remember a time without dogs in my life.
What were you interested in before you were interested in dogs?
I don't think I had a specific animal I was interested in. I just liked animals. We had like cats. Well, we did have a couple guinea pigs at one point, but my mom really hated having any animals in cages. So we didn't really, they weren't there that long, and then we didn't get more. I really liked horses. I feel like if I was born into a wealthier family, I would have potentially gone a totally different direction and like been a horse person. But I was poor, so it was dogs.
Yeah, it's hard. Horse stuff is like really intense. You're either like really, and it's hard to be just like casually interested in horses. So yeah, I had a similar experience. Even though I was involved with horses for a bit, it was still too hard to go all the way in.
Yeah.
So when did you get dogs? How old were you?
So my family had dogs. I have kind of a confusing family structure. Basically, when I was a kid, when I think of kind of my childhood dogs, my parents had divorced, and so I was kind of going back and forth between my mom and my dad's house. And my dad lived in a house that was on the edge of McLaren Park, which is a park in San Francisco. And the landlord of our house was also his ex-wife, and she lived in a trailer in the yard, like on the property, with her new husband. And so they had a bunch of dogs. They always had like a rotating cast of dogs. And the first dog that was sort of mine, like this was when actually my parents were still together, we went to the city shelter and we adopted a dog named, her name was Nancy at the shelter, but we changed it to Sassy.
That was like before giving dogs old people names was as much of a thing as it is now too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the early 90s. So
yeah, that's funny. Wait,
yeah.
What kind of dog was Nancy?
So I think we called her a Greyhound Lab mix. She was like red, kind of medium, bigger sized dog, but like who knows what she was.
Cute. Okay, so you got her.
She was my first dog, but she quickly kind of abandoned like living in the house with my family to live in the trailers with the other dogs, because that was a much more fun life for a dog.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then were you like hanging out with all of those dogs at any point?
I was, yeah. So we lived right on the edge of this park, and so I spent a lot of time in the park. Sometimes I would go, I have a younger brother who's like a couple years younger than me. So we would just hang out in the park, like ride bikes, kind of wander around. And we always had the dogs with us. So they were kind of free roaming because we lived, it wasn't like a cul-de-sac, but it was like a kind of like dead end street situation. And there wasn't like great fencing for most of the time I was there. So the dogs kind of were just out. And so when we would walk into the park, they would just come with us. And it was a really big park. It's the second largest park in San Francisco, but it's much less developed. So it wasn't really wilderness, but it felt very wild. And yeah, I spent a lot of times with those dogs kind of wandering. And I feel like when I got a little older, there was like a core group of dogs. So Sassy, and then Turtle, who was this little like cattle dog pit bull, maybe, who knows. And then there was this dog Kiko, who was I think he was a Japanese Spitz, American, white fluffy dog, some kind of Spitz. And he wasn't ours. He lived in a neighbor's house, but he would like jump the fence.
Oh my God.
And just like come to our house. And so those three were like the main dogs I hung out with.
I was going to ask how many dogs, because in my head I was imagining little baby you and just like 20 dogs following you everywhere you went.
Yeah, it was more like 3 to 5 at a time.
Okay, just in a sea of fluff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, they got, there was like more that kind of showed up over the years. But when I look back, those three, I think I spent the most time with.
Wow, that's so cute. And also kind of sounds like a movie. Fairy tale.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like Snow White type situation. Just all of the neighborhood animals following you around.
Yeah, I know. It makes me kind of sad to think back, because I think about like, yeah, modern times. Like if I was a kid now, like would I even be allowed to wander, to be in that park by myself? Like,
totally.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. That's totally not a thing in the United States right now. Most places. Okay, and then you did some kind of summer camp involving dogs?
Yeah, that was sort of my entrance into like being a dog nerd, and then also into the training world. So in the San Francisco SPCA, he used to have a hearing dog department, so they would train like shelter dogs to be service dogs for hearing impaired people. And they had a summer camp where you would like help train the dogs. So I did that, and it was maybe like a week or 2 weeks. We got like assigned a dog. The dog I got assigned, I can't remember if her name was Betsy or Bessie. I think it was Betsy.
A lot of good names already.
Yeah. I do remember she was a little pit bull mix. And yeah, I mean, I only spent like a week or 2 with her, but, they did like clicker training. I remember we were teaching the dogs to like turn on and off lights.
That's so cool. So
I think that kind of got me interested in training.
Yeah. How old were you at that time?
Oh gosh. I should have looked this stuff up and written it down.
I'm kind of just wondering, like, were you old enough that you were, I don't know, like, were the kids actually training the dogs, or was it more about the kids learning?
I think it was more about the kids learning. I was like 11.
That makes sense.
I was definitely not older than 12.
I wasn't sure if maybe it would be like let's bring some young teenagers to like test these dog skills before they go off into their homes or something.
I think it was more like the dogs were in training, and then while they were in training, they were like, we'll hang out with these kids.
That makes sense. That's really cool. There's a couple of kid and dog programs in Chicago, and I helped my friend Daphne do, I don't remember what the program is called now, but I will put it in the show notes, at the Chicago Animal Care and Control, and it's like so special. I don't know. I would have to think about the phrasing to fully encompass like how awesome it is without sounding corny, but it's really magical to be able to have kids and dogs or animals in general learn together.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my like far off future fantasies.
And you can really change their lives in that experience too.
Totally. Yeah.
I know that like working, even just the short time that I took horseback riding lessons, and even though I was so young, I don't know, I guess because I was a very thoughtful child, like that I remember working with horses when I was in 4th grade, like changing my life completely. Because I was very shy, and basically my horseback riding instructor was like, you must use your voice in this situation, and like with the comfort of the horses, they really brought me out of my shell to a certain extent. So I bet that stuff like that is happening all the time in those classes.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you have any big revelations in there about yourself, or were you just like, dogs are fucking awesome and I want to work with them?
I think the latter. Yeah, I think it was just like really, really, really fun. And at the time, it was sort of like around the peak of the San Francisco SPCA in terms of like the training world. They used to be like a really big kind of hub for training, and like a lot of, you know, pause reinforcement stuff was like starting there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to cut this out if I'm completely remembering wrong. But I think Ivan Balabanov started at the SPCA.
Oh,
SPCA.
I'll double check it. This is true. I am on Ivan's, it looks like it's his breeding program's website, which is www.malinois.com. And in his trainer bio under professional experience, he has worked as a guide dog instructor for 5 years in California, where he trained more than 300 dogs and students, as well as worked as an animal behaviorist at the San Francisco SPCA, a no-kill facility, and was responsible for the successful evaluation and rehabilitation of some of the most difficult cases. Interesting.
They had a huge training department. I mean, they had the whole like hearing department, and they had a really big training focus, and that has I think it's sort of slowly changed over time, and now it's not really.
And were they mostly using shelter dogs? It was all shelter dogs?
It was all shelter dogs.
Yeah. Whoa. Cool.
Yeah, I think for hearing dogs specifically, it was like a lot of the need was for like in the house, so like alerting people to the phone ringing, the doorbell, you know, stuff that was easier. I don't think you needed as much like public access. Although I'm sure that was part of it.
Yeah, and if you're super high volume, makes sense that you're gonna find the golden nuggets in there.
Exactly. Yeah, they had their pick of
That's so cool. And then you started volunteering there in high school?
Yeah, before high school. I think it was like a middle school. What age are you when you start high school?
14.
Okay, I was before that. Part of the reason I think it's hard for me to remember age stuff is because I didn't go to normal school. So I don't have like that track. I didn't start. I was homeschooled till 3rd grade, and then I went to high school. I went to normal high school for like a year, and then I did like this independence high school where you went to a bungalow once a week.
Oh my god, swag!
And like got homework and.
I was unschooled for two years. Real freaks rise up.
Yeah. What grades were you homeschooled?
7th and 8th grade. It was like random logistical. Yeah, it really made it was a really
interesting for your social life.
Critical time. I became very involved with some people in England.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was just on my computer all day.
Yeah,
it was a whole thing. Okay, but you're in middle school and you were volunteering. So if you were that young, how often were you in there?
I was doing it fairly regularly, and I was also doing like other I was walking my neighbor's dogs as like a job. I like really wanted to have a business like from a really young age. I wanted to like start a business, and I remember I really wanted to get a job really
Girl
young
boss.
and it was a huge frustration of mine for years because no one would hire me, you know, because I'm like 13.
Wow.
And it was really frustrating.
So
and
you
then
got to kind of like use your work ethic in the shelter, I'm guessing,
since
you were volunteering there.
Yeah, well, and then I got involved in rescue, and then that was like my full-time job. But the first job I ever got, the first like real job I got, I was 16, and I got a job at a dog daycare, and then I got fired like 2 weeks in.
Really? You must have done something really bad. They never fire people at dog daycare.
So the thing that I did was I didn't understand. So I had been working with this rescue group for like a couple years at that point, and it felt like the most important thing in the world. And so what would happen is like there would be some emergency that I needed to attend to, because there was always an emergency
At the rescue.
And so I would at the rescue. And so I would call, I would reach out to the other coworkers and be like, can you cover my shift? And they would be like, sure. And so I was like, I don't see the problem. Like they want, like someone is there. So, and they were like, right, but there's no point for you to work here if you're not coming.
That makes sense if that was happening in the first 2 weeks of you working there too.
Yeah, it happened a lot. And I also just I didn't really enjoy it, because it was like I don't know if they're still there. It was, I don't even know what it was called. Something camp. But it was like a huge, high volume, like kennel situation. But they would take all the dogs out in play groups, and it was like chaotic. And
yeah,
I was like, I have more important things to be doing.
I was gonna ask, when you were volunteering at the shelter, what was that like? Like, were they doing play groups there? Were you walking dogs? Were you just taking care of them?
Yeah, so at the SPCA, it was just walking the dogs, or like hanging out with them or training them in their rooms. Mm-hmm. The way that their like adoption center was, each dog had like a huge room, it was like a bedroom, and it was like all glass walls, but there was like real furniture. They were like set up like basically to mimic a house, like a home environment. And yeah, I don't think we were doing play groups, but I would go and like take them out for walks or do training in their rooms with them.
Did you get really attached to them while you were working there?
No, it's never been a thing. So I was involved with rescue for a long, long time, and I very rarely, it was like extremely rare that I would actually get like attached to a dog, like in a way like I wanted to keep them, or like I'd be sad when they left.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because you were encountering so many dogs?
I think it must have been that. And I think like the rest, like getting into the rescue world, I think at such a young age, it was like a constant crisis situation. So I think there just like wasn't time or room to like develop. Like it was like, okay, these 10 dogs are gonna die, like let's get all these dogs adopted today so we can go get those 10 dogs tomorrow.
And you're being like pulled in different directions, and as soon as you're like paying attention to one dog, it's like, oh, there's this crazy thing going on over here.
Yeah. It wasn't until the first dog that I sort of chose as my own dog was Felon. He was my pit bull who died in 2017, but I got him when I was 16. He was like a foster dog, and he was the first dog that I was like, oh, I want this one. And then it was years until I experienced that again. Like,
oh wow.
Quite a lot of years.
And like, how did that happen? What was different about Felon?
I don't know. He was just really magical. He
was like love at first sight.
Kind of. Yeah, he had like just really wild drive. But he was so solid temperamentally. And he was like such a clown. But he was kind of my go everywhere with me dog. He was just like always with me.
How did you get involved with the rescue after volunteering at the shelter?
Yeah, so I don't remember how I'd heard about them, but there was a rescue in San Francisco. There was 2 rescues in San Francisco that kind of worked together. One of them was like a pit bull specific rescue. And I was really into pit bulls. Maybe because of the dog I worked with in the hearing dog department, or I just liked the way they look. I don't remember what like drew me to them, or maybe the fact that they were like underdogs and mistreated, and that drew me in. The savior complex. But I went. So these 2 rescues would have like mobile adoptions where they would set up like on the street corner in the Castro district, and they'd have like a bunch of dogs up for adoption. So I'm sure I'd seen them out there. And I had emailed to volunteer, and they wanted me to come to the mobile adoption, like to volunteer at the mobile adoption. I remember I showed up, and I must have been 13 or 14 at this point. And one of the rescue like founders was there, and she had this like big red pit bull with like cropped ears. And I saw him and I was like immediately obsessed. And so I was like, can I hold this dog? Like, I want to hold this dog. And she was like, no, like, we're going to give you an easier dog. And then the founder of the other rescue, who was also there, basically was like, no, she can hold that dog. And so I did. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of my my entry into rescue, and my entry into that rescue group specifically, because this person, like, literally the day I met her, she like was like, I'm entrusting you with this responsibility because I can sense that, you know, you can handle it.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Which, yeah, just really I feel like you know.
Yeah, totally. That checks out for me. I have like kind of a big question for you, so feel free to think about it if you need to. But I'm curious for myself, and also maybe for people who don't have a lot of experience in rescues, if there's a way that you can like sum up the experience of being involved in the rescue world for so long, and just like what it felt like and what you were dealing with, because you were doing it for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was sort of like full-time with the rescue, like from literally that day when I went to the mobile adoption, like that was from that day forward, I was like full-time, like every day doing that. Yeah. Doing, you know, basically I was working for free. In it. Child labor.
Yeah.
So I was 13 or 14, up until I was 19. That sort of was the main thing I was doing. And then from 19 to like 28 or something, I was still fostering dogs, but I was not like working in a rescue. I was just sort of a foster home.
Yeah.
Which is a very different experience.
Totally. Yeah.
Working in the rescue, and I say working, I was not getting paid. I don't know. It's hard to sum it up. It set me on a path of like a lot of challenges that I had to overcome, like sort of emotionally, because it was like, especially getting involved so young, because it was like, first I was kind of made aware of like, okay, so the reality is that like they're killing dogs, first of all, like when you're a kid and you learn that, you know, dogs are being euthanized, that's like upsetting.
Yeah.
So I learned like, okay, all these dogs are being euthanized, and most of them at that time like were not were like adoptable dogs. It was just for space. There was not space for these dogs. Mm-hmm. So I learned that, you know, okay, all these dogs are being euthanized, and then I also learned that we could save them all. Mm-hmm. Because the rescue that I happened to get involved with was that kind of rescue. So the founder of the rescue, we would go to the shelter, and we had this big minivan. So we would go to the shelter, we would walk through, and every single dog that was on the euthanasia list, like for that day, we would take. And we would pile them all in the van. Sometimes it was 10 dogs. Sometimes it was 18. And then we would drive them home to her 2-bedroom apartment. And we would put them all in there.
Are they like crated in this story, or they were loose? And
some of them, but not most of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some that were crated, but yeah, it was crazy. But like that feeling of like learning that this horrible injustice is happening, and then also learning that I can fix it, was like so powerful.
Yeah.
But then later, I had a lot of devastating realizations and learning moments.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds heavy.
Yeah.
Was this like, as you were doing the work, were you mostly like, was there like a feeling of optimism? Was it a cycle? Was it really stressful all the time? Like just like, what was like the vibe as you were doing that work?
Yeah, so it was hopeful, but it was also like extremely dark.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I mean, it makes sense to me, but that's, I guess, because of my insight into rescue.
Yeah. It wasn't like hopeful happy. It was like hopeful, like, we're doing important work, we're saving these dogs, and like if we can just get enough people, like if we can educate people on spay and neuter, if people just fix their dogs, if people just adopt dogs, like, then we can fix this problem. So it kind of felt like that when I was younger.
And when you moved into fostering, were you questioning like the whole system at that point, or were you just kind of looking to detach yourself so you could do other things with your life or not be so invested in it full time?
Yeah, I think I started getting sort of disillusioned towards like the end of my time with the rescue. So there was a lot of things like, you know, as I was sort of growing up and, you know, learning more, I was really into behavior. I mean, from a really young age. And I was really into welfare from a young age. And so the more I learned, the more it was hard to reconcile with the way things were done at the rescue. So, you know, some of like the dogs that this person owned would get, you know, maybe a car ride a month, and that was sort of the only time they left the premises.
And that was, I'm guessing, probably just because of like the numbers that they were pulling, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we regularly had like 10 to 15 dogs in the house. Yeah. We had dog fights all the time, like every morning.
I was assuming so, based off of the situation.
Yeah, and we had, you know, we had a lot of pit bulls. We had like fighting pit bulls. We lived like right above the projects, and people would like dump dogs.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that situation was pretty extreme, but that kind of like catch-22 of trying to save as many dogs as possible while still giving them good care is like really hard for a lot of rescues to balance, I think.
Yeah, I think my situation was a little extreme, but yeah, the theme of what was going on, I think, is one that is common in rescue still to this day. Which was, our attitude was like we were like emergency workers. It was not about like, it was just a constant 24/7 crisis.
And it just never ends.
Never ends. And like, yeah, I mean, the dogs at the house, like, I mean, yes, weren't getting their needs met, but also were fighting, you know, I mean, plenty of dogs died in fights or other ways. And we also like didn't, like, the way that we did adoptions was like, the goal was like, it was almost like, I mean, we were never like tricking people, but it was like the goal was to get the dogs into homes so that we could rescue the next like batch of dogs that were like about to be killed. So sometimes it was like, you know, well, we're gonna this dog's just gonna get into this home and then it'll be their problem to figure out, you know. And there was like a lot of dogs that were not adopted into the right homes, a lot of dogs that shouldn't have been adopted into any homes. And a lot of, I mean, there definitely were some big lies. I mean, we had some dogs that were pretty seriously aggressive that, you know, should not have been adopted out. The rescue that I was with really wanted to get the serious dogs. I don't know if you remember, there was a story in San Francisco where 2 Presa Canarios killed a woman in an apartment elevator. This was a long time ago, decades ago.
Yeah, I don't think I know that story.
Yeah, so there was 2 Presa Canarios. They lived in an apartment building, and they were like on leash. Well, I actually don't remember if they were on leash, but they were in the hallway of the apartment building, and they attacked the woman, and she died.
Whoa.
And we wanted to get those dogs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We fought to get them, to like pull them from the shelter, and the shelter didn't let us. Thank God.
Yeah, holy moly.
But at the time, my mindset was like, those dogs are fine. Like, those dogs can be rehabilitated and we can find them a home.
Wow. Scary.
Mm-hmm. We had a volunteer who worked at the hospital that she was admitted to, who was like, who, you know, had this whole thing where she was like, you know, the media is saying that the dogs mauled her, but it was really just one puncture and it happened to like hit an artery and she bled out. And so like, it wasn't actually a mauling.
Oh my God. Wow.
Which we used as like an argument. Like,
oh my gosh.
Point of argument.
That's so crazy. Do you have any feeling for if rescues or shelters in general now are moving away from that rhetoric, or do you think that that's just as prominent of an issue now as it was when you were involved actively?
Yeah, so it's hard to say because I'm really uninvolved in rescue right now.
Yeah.
Sort of intentionally. I tried to briefly foster a dog when I moved here, and I had such a horrible interaction with the person who ran the rescue, and I was just like, absolutely not. Not doing this again.
Yeah, well, I don't know why ever, based off of this story, you wouldn't want to be involved in rescue anymore.
Yeah, so I'm really not plugged into, like, the industry of rescue right now. I feel like from what I know, like, what I see online, what I hear from other dog professionals, I think things are getting better.
Well, I can say I don't know exact statistics, and I'm only kind of like tangentially. Is that a word? Oh my god, tangentially?
Tangentially.
Oh my god. I'm only I'm only affiliated with rescues in that I inevitably work with tons of rescue dogs because I'm a professional dog trainer. But
same.
I know for sure that the mentality that you're describing at this place where you were still exists, and I think it's also important to acknowledge that it's just kind of like a core catch-22 of a lot of rescues. Like, it's the kind of people who start a rescue, typically it's really hard for them to control that rescue every dog urge, in my experience. And it makes sense, you know. These people are I mean, you have to be crazy to want to try to take in as many dogs as you possibly can, which is ultimately the goal of a rescue, right? Or to help rehome them. And there's obviously admirable qualities involved with that, but there's a certain level of almost like superhuman optimism or something.
Totally.
Maybe be a nice way of putting it. I can say it's definitely out there still.
Yeah, I think it's hard because, like, I think it's really sad, and just, like, traumatic to be, you know, that, you know, if you're running a rescue, if you're, like, in that world where you're kind of constantly confronted with, you know, dogs on a euthanasia list or, like, abuse stuff, you know, it's like, it's really hard. And so I think a lot of people, you know, don't want to be involved because they just can't handle it. And I think the people who can handle it, you know, I think sometimes are people who've, like, had really rough lives themselves. I feel like, you know, it can be a way for people to sort of make things feel okay in their life, like, if they can save these dogs.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Totally.
Yeah. I think it's kind of twofold, the thing that happens, because I think, one, it's like the numbers game, like, that we can save every dog, and even if that means, like, dogs sit in boarding kennels for years, or like we always had a dog living in the bathroom. You know, we can save all of them, even if it means that their welfare sucks, and or if they're, like, you know. So there's that aspect, and then there's also the aspect of, like, we can change any behavior, like, any dog, you know, can be rehabilitated. And I think that's kind of the twofold thing. It's like both of those concepts together, and neither of them are, you know, I don't believe either of those things. I think it's not ethical to save every dog if that means that they have to be suffering for years. And I also don't think it's ethical to, like, attempt to rehabilitate, you know, any dog.
Yeah.
There are definitely dogs that I don't think can be rehabilitated in a way that would be, like, safe or ethical.
Right. I did want to say one just, like, positive note for the rescues out there, which is that I do think that it's, now that we have more commonly available information about welfare and even just, like, basic training concepts and enrichment and stress, like, I feel like now more than ever that information is just everywhere. And also things like post-adoption stuff, like decompression, like, most rescues understand and educate new adopters about decompression periods and stuff. So even though I just was like, we're saying, oh, there's still these big problems and that's the vibe, I do just want to say I think that there's all of these great things that have been more popularized recently.
Yeah, for sure. And I still am, I'm not like anti-dog rescue.
Yeah, no.
I've never, well, I was going to say I've never bought a dog. I did buy a dog, but it was not, I didn't go out and buy him. I fostered him for a service dog organization, and then he failed his service dog training, and so I kept him.
I don't think that counts.
I don't think that counts either. Like, I have never gone out to a breeder and purchased a dog, and I honestly don't think I ever will. Like, most of my dogs have been rejects. So, I'm definitely not, I'm not anti-rescue, and I'm not anti-rescue dog, but there's a lot of problems in the industry.
Same. Yeah, it's just important to acknowledge all of it. Okay, so then from there you decided to go to dog training school, right? And that's when you kind of had these big realizations about behavior as a whole that you weren't really being educated about just in the rescue world, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's funny because I actually went to dog training school with like the full intent to start my own dog rescue.
Oh, you were like, I'm going to dog training school so I can help rescues even more.
Yes, because I wanted to have my own rescue, and I was like, I need to like be a professional dog trainer to do this right.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until I was in the school, I was there when I was at school or after I graduated, when I realized that I couldn't really make money running a dog rescue, so I had to pivot. But that was the original reason I went, is like, I just wanted to do a dog rescue, but I knew that, like, I knew enough to know that, like, I needed to be a dog trainer to do it well.
Yeah. And what were like the biggest things, your biggest takeaways from going to dog training school?
Oh gosh, I mean, I feel like there's a lot. It was a weird time in my life because it was so fun. Like, the school is really, I think the school is pretty different now than it was when I was there. It was called Triple Crown when I was there, and it's now Starmark. And like the trainers who taught me are not there anymore. But it was like heaven. I mean, especially for like a dog trainer. I feel like if I could like do anything, like if money wasn't an object and I could do anything, I would like go back. Like, I would do that school again. Like, it was so fun. It was just so fun. But it also, I went, it started 2 months after my dad died from lung cancer. So, and I was 19. So it was a weird experience because I was in like massive like dissociative grief. But then also like doing this really fun thing. So, so my memory is kind of obscured a little bit.
How was it, like a couple of years, the whole course, or? No,
I was there for 6 months.
Oh, okay. I just completely made up the couple of years thing. I don't know what that Okay.
So you live on, or you lived on the properties. It's in Texas, outside of Austin.
Yeah.
They have this huge property, so they have like double wides for the student housing. So you live on property. And I had like I brought 3 pit bulls with me, Felon, who was mine, and then I had 2 foster ones. And I had left the rescue at that point, but there wasn't anywhere for those ones to go, so I just took them with me. I definitely got really into dog sports there. So the teachers at the school were German Shepherd breeders, and they were big IGP people, competitors. Jesse Gabriel and Rob Dunn, they're still pretty active in the sport. So I got really into dog sport stuff, particularly like protection was really interesting and fun for me. And Felon, who was like the main dog I had, he was just game for anything. So I did all this stuff with him. So we had like different courses, you know, and like we would do agility, we would do protection stuff, we would do search and rescue stuff, and he could do all of it. Like there was no like track that he couldn't do.
That's awesome. Did learning about protection sport training change any of your perception of the aggression that you had seen in rescue at all? Oh
yeah, I feel like now it's so popular, but at the time it wasn't as popular. But it really felt like like you almost need to participate in some protection sport stuff to be able to do a good job with aggression cases. Because if you know how to build aggression and like bring it out and shape it, that gives you such a better understanding of how to do the opposite.
Right.
It definitely taught me a lot about that.
That makes sense. Did it change what you thought of as the motivation? Like, I'm just guessing. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, dogs are just aggressive because they're stressed out or sad or, you know, because something bad happened to them. Was that a part of your education at all, or had you kind of already figured out that there are dogs who also just like enjoy aggression?
Yeah, so I think I knew that part because of all of the pit bull fights.
That makes sense.
But I also, so if we rewind a little bit and then I'll fast track through this. When I first sort of got into dog training at the SPCA, they were like extremely force-free. So they had like posters up everywhere about like the evils of prong collars. And when I started working with the rescue was very much not force-free. And I went in, you know, very much on my high horse at 13 being like, actually, I know how to train dogs and you need a clicker and you need treats and like, you know.
I love just like, I'm imagining the epitome of a know-it-all baby dog trainer, but it's like, and you were literally a baby.
Literally baby. And I remember they just kind of laughed at me, you know, they were like, okay. And they had, you know, I mean, we had a lot of serious dogs.
Yeah.
And like, you know, sure, we could, maybe those dogs could have been trained different ways, but the point was the type of, you know, force-free training that I was doing at 13 was not going to be effective for these dogs. And so, yeah, when I was started working with the rescue, the trainers they worked with were pretty heavy compulsion trainers. And so I really flipped. I feel like I did it backwards. I think a lot of people start with like heavy compulsion and then move into more positive reinforcement, and I feel like I had a backwards journey.
You're kind of like a double crossover trainer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I kind of went one extreme to the other extreme and then sort of to more the middle. But yeah, we did these trainings with this trainer, Dennis Marco. He passed a long time ago, but he was a very heavy compulsion trainer. He'd like been in the military, so there was no food. It was like, it wasn't even prong collars, it was like choke chains.
This was at the rescue?
Like, and he had like a weekly class, so we would like take all the dogs to his class.
It was like Keeler style.
It was not nice training, but what I experienced was like, so I had, you know, when I was at the SPCA, so, you know, they never had a pit bull in their program. They never had a pit bull in their program, not one. And they would, you know, they got to cherry pick which dogs they took. They were not the city shelter. So they would go in and they would choose what dogs they wanted to take. And then when I worked at the rescue, I realized, and then the rescue gets all the rejects. So all the dogs the SPCA won't take, you know, this rescue is taking. And then this rescue is finding success with these dogs, like using these different methods. So it really changed my thinking about training, because I was like, well, the SPCA's argument that like this one type of training is the only one that works doesn't really hold up, because they're like just not even working with these dogs. They're not even trying, you know.
Yeah.
And the first like really challenging behavior dog I had was this dog Rocky, who was like this big black, I don't know, pit bull mix thing. And he had like failed his temperament test at the city shelter. I don't even remember what he failed for, but he was like super reactive, but he was just like a big idiot boy. And we e-collar trained him, and then I had him like off leash, and he was like social with dogs. He was off leash, and that was like a big magical moment in my life as a dog trainer, because it was the first dog that I had sort of taken from like on the euthanasia list, you know, not a safe dog, to like off leash and kind of normal.
Yeah.
It was really powerful.
You're still like a little kid in this story, aren't you?
I was like 14 probably.
I mean, there's
15.
something to be said for, like, user, like, so easy a 14-year-old could do it,
I mean,
you know?
Yeah.
Though I guess that's not personally how I would like to market e-collar training for aggressive dogs, but maybe the story should actually be that you were particularly talented and like not self-educated only, but you did know stuff by then. You had like a ton of experience at that point already.
Yeah, and I was working like with the trainers, like I wasn't just doing it by myself.
Right, you had mentors.
Yeah, so we weren't following Cesar Millan, but I feel like I was sort of more in that like, I don't know, genre of thinking about dogs, where it was sort of about like, I'm the leader, a lot about energy, you know, sort of like that way of thinking. And I was like, yeah, much more like compulsive of a trainer. And then when I went to the dog training school, like they taught a ton of pause reinforcement stuff. I mean, they were a balanced school, so they also taught e-collars and prong collars and everything else, but they also did like tons of pause reinforcement stuff. And I sort of fell in love with pause reinforcement because it was like sophisticated and interesting and fun and cool. And I think what was happening at the SPCA was like sort of basics, you know, like all the dogs were on gentle leaders.
Right.
And yeah, so when I was at school, they were like doing, you know, pause reinforcement with sports stuff. So yeah, that was one of the shifts that happened as I sort of, you know, came back more into pause reinforcement. And then I also kind of learned, you know, I came into the dog training school really thinking that you could fix any dog and not really understanding that genetics played a big part in behavior. And I remember having a lot of clashes with Jessie Gabriel because we would kind of get in arguments about it because she was like, you know, would talk about genetics and puppies and, you know, how you can't change genetics. And I would be like, yes, you can. I've done it. I did it when I was 14. And I don't know if I learned that like fully at school. I think I learned it later when I had to behaviorally euthanize one of my own dogs for like really severe aggression.
Yeah.
Which like I won't go into detail with that, but it did. You know, that was like the big paradigm shift was like, well, now I've actually been through this experience where I learned the hard way that I can't actually change every dog. I can't actually fix every behavior problem. So I don't think it fully happened at school, but it started, you know, those ideas.
It started the ideas, and then you were looking around at the world and you were like, oh, wait.
Yeah. Maybe it's not just like my fault, you know, I can't be whatever. I can't get my energy right enough to fix this dog's aggression.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how I felt, you know, like if I can just figure out the dog that had to be euthanized, like he slept in my bed, and I remember there was a period of time where I was like, if I didn't let him sleep in my bed, then he wouldn't have wanted to kill people.
Oh my God.
You know, like the whole dominance thing of like, well,
Yeah, you're like, because I let him eat first and walk through the door, I ruined him.
Yeah. Even though he was like extremely aggressive from the day we got him.
Oh no, that's so sad. Yeah.
But I thought I could fix him. I really did. And I also thought I could never make a mistake. And I think that was another really important lesson I learned is that I used to feel very like, I don't even know if I felt superior to other people as much as I felt frustrated by other people. Because when something would happen, especially in the rescue, like someone would make him like lose a dog or there would be a fight or something, it was always like, these idiots, like they just can't like do things right. And like, I'm the only one who can do things right. And I was just felt like I don't make a mistake. Like that was just part of my identity, was like, I just never make a mistake. And that's how I can have all these like dangerous dogs and nothing happens. And then I did make a mistake one day, and it resulted in like a really horrific thing happening.
Yeah. So like huge ego death at probably about the right time in your life.
Yeah.
early 20s. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's when people are supposed to have ego deaths.
Yeah.
Though, the whole thing with annoying dog trainers is that they're stuck in the mindset that you described having as a literal child, so maybe they
Yes.
should reflect on that.
Maybe they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you have such a crazy life story though, because even when you're talking about like people weren't taking you, or you were kind of getting into arguments with the instructors and you're at 19 at the dog training school, it's like
I know,
you're
so
like
full of it.
but also you were like, dude, I have like if you round up, I have a decade's worth of dog training experience already.
It's true.
You just started so young.
Yeah, and I also was not the easiest person to teach because my parents were very like hippie, kind of leftist people, and they like raised me to really question authority.
Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking, I was like, I bet you were really annoying.
Yeah, I'm sure I was like so challenging to teach.
Yes. Okay, well, let's jump all across your whole life to the right now.
Okay.
You're doing your own thing.
Yes.
You're focused on the dogs, and you work with dogs who have complex behavior issues normally. Mm-hmm. What exactly does that look like? Complex behavior issues can mean so many different things to different people. Can you paint a picture for us?
Yeah, so it's what I mean by that is usually like a dog that has like a long list of behavior problems. So and usually there's some form of aggression. So it could be a dog that's like dog aggressive and human aggressive, dogs with bite histories, dogs with like anxiety. So yeah, I think by complex, I usually mean there's like a lot going on with like the individual dog. Mm-hmm. And also the severity is pretty high.
Yeah. What makes you want to specialize in those cases?
Well, it's kind of funny because it's like a lot of, I feel like I find myself kind of going back to where I started often. Mm-hmm. Like, I've always kind of been into that. I mean, that's like my first, like I when I went to the SPCA summer camp, like that definitely like lit the fire of training. But it wasn't until I was exposed to those dogs that like had real difficult behaviors going on that I got like really hooked. Mm-hmm. So I've always been into that. I think I like the puzzle of it. Mm-hmm. And I also really like to see the healing process.
Yeah.
So the kind of trainer I am now, I guess you could kind of, this is one of the things I've been working on is trying to like figure out my marketing, because I'm really bad at marketing and I also just hate it. But I don't have an elevator pitch for what I do, but you could consider me like a holistic kind of welfare, based trainer.
Yeah. You have dogs outside a lot. Right. And
yes.
You're posting it on Instagram all the time, so I feel like I know for sure, like, you are outdoors.
Yeah, so getting dogs time off leash in nature is, like, pretty central to what I do. And also, like, having them in, like, a stable social group. Mm-hmm. And I got that term from, there's a trainer, Tara Stillwell, who has a business called Forest School. I think her company is called Glimmer Dog, but like her thing is Forest School. And I heard her on Sarah Strumming's podcast. Sarah Strumming's kind of been my North Star kind of favorite person to follow since she's started her podcast. Mm-hmm. But so I think what she does is similar to me, Tara Stillwell, but she doesn't necessarily work with like aggression cases. But when I was listening to her stuff, she had like all of these terms that I was like, oh, that is a great term for that. And one of them was a stable social group. So I've been doing that forever, but I didn't really have a term for it. But now I do. So yeah, that is definitely part of it, is having like a group of dogs that get to know each other and can like learn from each other.
And you have like long programs that you do, right? You're not churning out 2-week board and trains.
No. So I would say typically for like behavior cases, I usually have these dogs for like 8 weeks. So I feel really grateful. Like, I love my clients. It's very rare, very, very rare that I have a client that I would want to complain about.
Nice.
Which I know that makes me very lucky.
Yeah.
But I also have like engineered that on purpose. I really don't. I really prefer doing like in-depth board and trains, because I get those types of clients. So, someone's not going to leave their dog with me for 8 weeks, and like do 6 to 10 lessons with me if they want like a quick fix.
Yeah,
I'm not the one to hire if you want a quick fix.
I was gonna ask, like, what other qualities would you use to describe those clients? I would imagine they're like dedicated.
Yeah, really invested, and like they want to understand their dog. Like, they want to know why, like what is going on and why they're doing what they're doing. And I develop like relationships with these people because I'm like, I'm in their house. Their dogs live with me for such a long time, so I get to really know them well. And then I get to know the people well because I like learning about like their family dynamics, and like, it can be like really emotional for a lot of them because a lot of them are dealing with these dogs that are really difficult. And yeah, so it's gratifying in that way, and I think. I worked for a brief period of time. I did independent contracting for a company that does board and trains. So I would get like assigned clients, and those were usually 3 to 4 weeks. And that was really not fun for me because it was usually people who like had a dog that was not the right dog for them, and they sort of just like wanted their problems to be fixed. And it's not like they were bad people, but they thought that like this was sort of how you did it. They thought you just like send your dog to a board and train and then they fix your problems for you.
And you didn't get to really like talk to people that much before the dogs were with you, right?
No, we had one conversation on the phone, and that was after they had like already paid.
Yeah.
So I think it was always awkward because sometimes I'd get on the phone with them and they'd be like, so this is what we want, and then I'd have to be like, well, let's alter your expectations.
Yeah, I remember when you had that going on, and I remember talking to you about it. It sounded really bad.
Yeah, there was a brief period of time where I was like, well, this is great. I can just like make money. I don't have to do the marketing. But then it did not last long. But yeah, that was a situation where I would find myself in those situations where it just felt like frustrating, and I would get to this point where I would almost start thinking like, should we even own dogs? Like, should we even have dogs? Because it was just like constantly these situations of like people trying to put a round, square peg into a round hole. And then I was being paid to do that.
Okay, so you get to make your own programs now, and life is a lot better.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you something that I've actually I originally wanted to have this in every single episode, but I haven't been able to wrangle it in with anyone yet. So I'm excited to ask you, as you mentioned, working with humans, especially in difficult cases, is emotional. It's emotionally taxing. And obviously just having dogs in your house, period, is difficult. Client dogs, multiple dogs, but it's extra hard when they are dogs with behavior cases. So how do you take care of yourself? How do you keep yourself regulated for them so that you don't get all stressed out and make them worse on accident? How do you prevent burnout or deal with burnout if it's already happening?
Yes, I feel like that was a lot of questions.
It's kind of all the same thing, though. Like, how do you not go crazy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Lucia wanted to come back and give an even better answer to this after the interview, and I figured, why don't I just answer too, since I'm already in here stitching voice memos into the podcast. So I have had lots of times in my career as a dog trainer, obviously, you know that now, where I signed up for a bunch of work, or I structured my schedule in a certain way, or just involved in certain situations because I thought that I should be able to handle that because that's what other people around me were doing, or I thought that other people were around me doing that. This is an industry full of really hard workers. There are so many dog trainers out there that take on an enormous amount of work, and it's almost impossible to not let that affect you in any way. And so for me, it's been really helpful to just step back and ask myself if it might make a really positive impact on my life to be able to walk away from certain things or structure services differently or charge more if you can charge more so that you don't have to work as much. I know that it might sound like really flippant advice to be like, just work less and make more money, but really I have caught myself so many times throughout my life being like, wait a second, why am I working myself this hard? And when I realized that I didn't have a good answer to that, it really helped me balance my work-life situation significantly. And so that would be my big piece of advice for anti-burnout formula. Kind of don't let other people's expectations cause you to put your own square peg self into society or dog training culture's round hole. Oh man, that sucked. Okay, here's Lucia's answer.
I think this question is really important, and it's something that we don't talk about enough in the industry. You'll see online every couple months some horrible story about a dog trainer who was abusing dogs or neglecting dogs. And the response is always about how, well, this must just be a horrible person, and we just have to figure out how to get all the bad people out of the industry. And I think that take on it is really a way for people to avoid the uncomfortable truth that we are all actually a lot closer to the edge than we think we are. And we need to have that conversation if we want things to get better. So for me, learning about my ADHD and how it affects my day-to-day life has been really impactful. Building my regulation skills has helped with avoiding burnout. And also now I notice when I'm starting to feel burnt out and I can address it. Whereas before, when I was much less regulated, I just wouldn't really be aware until I was sort of in the pit of it. And then it was really, really hard to climb out. So I wouldn't say I never feel burnt out anymore, but I'm able to recognize when that's happening. And now I have tools to get myself out before it's too late. Having community and a social support system is pretty vital. That's definitely something I'm still working on. But I am grateful to have friends who will and do come over just to help me do the dishes sometimes. Being able to ask for help and to accept help is big, and sometimes does require working through embarrassment and pride that might stop you from asking for help. And kind of going along with that, not isolating yourself. It's easy as a dog trainer, especially if you work alone, to be isolated, and I think that's dangerous. I live with another dog trainer currently, and I really credit her for a lot of my sanity. I never want to live alone and do this job again. And then having hobbies and friends outside of the work, I think, can really help. In the last few years, I've had kind of a tunnel vision about my work and my business, and I also have been raising a puppy. So I've lost touch a little bit with my passions outside of training, and that's something that I'm actively trying to rebuild now. Time spent away from dog training, not only it's good for me, but it also makes me that much more motivated to get back to the work.
Do you want to tell people where to find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Frolic Dog Training. Frolic is spelled Frolic, and my website is frolicdogtraining.com, and I really need to update it, so don't go there. Go to my Instagram. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Cool. I'll put it in the show notes too. Sweet.